Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Legacy Leaders. Yours truly, Scott McMeans. I am joined today by Matt Reeder. He is the founder of Mad Fish Solutions. And before we get in all the details of what they do, how well they do it, I'm going to turn the microphone and camera over to Matt so he can introduce himself, tell us what he does, how well he does it, who he does it for, and why do people love working with him. And then we're going to get into some stories. We're going to talk about challenges and lessons learned. So before we get in all that, Matt, microphone and camera are yours, sir. Tell us your story.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you having me. I'm enjoying this and uh really appreciate the time. So my name is Matt Reeder. I am the founder of Madfish Solutions. We are actually a collection of three different brands. There's Madfish Solutions, the mattreader.com, and also the Madfish AI. But we'll get into that in just a minute. So my whole journey started when I was about 12 years old, and I had a Commodore VIC-20, if you can imagine that. If any of you guys remember back to that, it had a whole 5K of RAM. But there was a magazine that I got that was called Run, and Run every month would have code and different things you could run on your Commodore and that kind of thing. So one day I sit down and for hours typing in this code and line by line, and I checked it over and I typed the word run, and this little block started bouncing around the screen and destroying other blocks. And I remember as a 12-year-old jumping up and down like I had just, landed something on the moon. But
That's
it was
badass,
that
actually.
moment. It was actually that moment that I knew that this was my destiny. So about and that moment was good grief, about 42 years now ago. But after that, I set out to learn everything that we could about software or technology or anything about that. And about 27 years ago, right after the internet got going and people were starting to think about commerce, I jumped in the e-commerce platform. We went in both feet, and I knew that's where it was to go, right? So I've done everything from build my own platform that we sold all over the country. I actually sold that business in 2008, and then worked with a couple other partners, and then in 2012 started Madfish Solutions. So what we do right now is we partner with companies like BigCommerce and Shopify
Mm.
to be a true agency to their customers, right? Or their potential customers. So we do everything from graphic design to conversion optimization to content generation. We will do email campaigns and some SEO work to help with that, but our real specialty is conversion optimization. I'm just a firm believer that if you are building an e-commerce brand, your number one biggest priority is conversion optimization. Example of that, we just launched the site for a customer back in September. We just did their first 90-day review. And what we saw was their conversion rate from their old site went from a 1.3 to a 3.05. So when you're talking about changing conversion like that, we are, we in essence more than doubled what this guy was doing, right?
Yeah.
And so throughout my career in e-commerce, that's just something I've always believed in. And one of the company that I sold, we had a statistic that literally 52%, I think it was 52 or 53% of our customers that came to us with an existing e-commerce store, um, they would double their sales in 90 days. And, it's no magic kind of thing. It's just about building solid design, good checkout, good content for products and that kind of thing. And that's what we really focused on. So that's made us very
Mhm.
successful. The mattreader.com brand is really my personal one-on-one consulting brand. So this is where somebody doesn't want to work with a team or work with us as a company kind of thing, but really wants one-on-one time with me. And that's what we do there. So there's that. And then the one that I'm most excited about is our Madfish AI platform
Mm,
that we just did a soft launch in October, and we're getting ready to do a big launch here probably February 1st. And we're pretty excited about that. It's an AI platform designed for e-commerce companies. And what we've done is we've built this ingestion engine that can take data from any kind of point of the e-commerce company, their email marketing, their store statistics, customers, products, sales, their Google Analytics, their Google Search Console, anything else that we can come up with, we can ingest that data. And now what you have is you have an AI that knows everything about your
mm,
company, right? So imagine being able to ask a question that says, based on the success of email campaigns last quarter, what was my top performing email? And what were the three products that sold the most the 3 days after that email send was done? And being able to get actionable, intelligent insight back from that system about your store. And it's all tailored around your data in your store.
yeah.
So it's pretty cool, and there's a lot more that it does, and there's several different ways you can interact with the AI, and we have some automated, um, basically there. Our engine, when it imports new data, it looks for anomalies, looks for patterns, looks for different trends, and will proactively send the user information that it finds in these insights.
Real
So
okay.
we've just turned AI from being a responsive kind of thing that people are so used to, where you have to know what kind of prompt to type, right? To where our AI comes out and says, "Hey, did you notice that this product's sales dropped in the last 3 months by 33%?" And
Mhm.
be able to be proactive like that. So it's all in. It's pretty cool the way that it works. So those are kind of the three things that we do, and we've been doing a very long time. We've worked with probably, I did an estimate the other day. It was about 500 companies over the 27 years. And we, after our clients have worked with us, we're responsible for over $1 billion in GMV from those clients and from the sales growth that they've seen from that. So that's when you flip around, and I imagine that 12-year-old, right? And wondering
Mhm.
what he'd be thinking right now. And I truly am living the 12-year-old dream every day
Yeah.
when I come to work, and it's just, when you sit back and you get to think about how millions and millions of people have laid their hands on a piece of software that you've written, it's a pretty cool feeling.
That's badass, right? I mean, think about the impact you have on everyday American lives, not to mention the people that asked you to do it and the billions of dollars that you've generated. You said over 500 companies over 27 years, $1 billion in revenue growth. That's pretty impactful. No matter, I don't care who you are. That's impactful. So I
Yep.
want to get back to a little bit because you made some really good statements here. Um, You've been in this space for a long period of time. I know you've seen, especially in e-commerce
Yeah.
and anything technological, from, like I said, you had a Commodore 12, for Christ's sakes, to now there's significantly more powerful computer in your hand than what you
Right.
ever had back
Right.
then.
Right.
So over the course of those 27 years, Matt, what is the biggest challenge you've ever faced as you built the business that you sold or the businesses
Yeah.
that you have right now? What's the
Yeah.
thing that just kind of, damn, I can't believe we did that, and thank God we did.
You know, it's been my life has really been one of truly a serial entrepreneur, right?
Mhm.
Started at 8 years old and made Pac-Man Ghost Monster refrigerator magnets that I sold in school bookstores, and had a production team and everything. It's just been in my blood, right? So over the course of my career, I have probably started. I want to say 12 or 13 businesses
Hmm.
over that time. And the thing that I've learned, one of the earliest things that I learned is um, failure is an incredible opportunity for growth and learning, right? And of those 12 or 13 businesses, I'd say probably two-thirds of them were really good learning experiences, right? And the other ones were very successful and have done well for us and that kind of thing. But as I look back and I think about the two biggest things that I have learned over the course of my career, one of them is have a plan.
Yeah.
Have a detailed plan. Know where you're going to go, who you're going to talk to, what you're going to say. Have your performance worked out. Be conservative on those. Understand what's really there. Know your product, know your market. Make sure you make something that is going to touch a pain, right?
Hmm.
Don't try and sell a product on price. Don't try and sell a product on just being the best new, right? It's the old adage of what is easier to sell, vitamins or aspirin, right? You knock on somebody's door and say, "Man, I got this thing that you're going to feel better and it's going to be better and you're going to be stronger and all these things." And they go, "Yeah, I'm not interested. I'm pretty content where I am," right? But you knock on that door and that person comes to the door and you say, "You know what? Do you ever have headaches? What if
Yeah.
I gave you something that in 20 minutes that headache would go away?" Well, now it's a thing, right?
Yep.
So the whole idea about, your product, have a plan, sell to a pain, those are really things, but that planning is so important. The other thing that I would tell an entrepreneur that's really trying to get into business or is struggling in their current business or just ready to walk away from it all and their family says, what are you doing? This is crazy, all this stuff like that. Don't quit.
Hmm.
Don't quit. Don't give up. If you fail, you pick yourself up and you go again. That's the sign of a champion, right? It's not will the person who's on top fall and make a mistake. Absolutely, you will. Absolutely, that will happen. There have been times in my life where I didn't know how I'd make payroll, or I didn't know how I'd pay rent, or I didn't know how I would do any of those things, right? And you fall on your face and think, man, did I learn a lesson there? Right. And then the magic thing of a successful entrepreneur is the person that gets up, dust yourself off, start your next venture, or continue the existing, and pivot, change,
Hmm.
create a new plan, be willing to do that, but you stand up, you brush yourself off, and you keep going. You don't quit, right?
Yeah.
And I think honestly, that's probably the most important thing that I would tell some, whether it's a young kid starting in, an entrepreneurial career, or if it's the person that, is just like, I don't know what to do. And you have to do what you have to do. Sometimes, there have been times in my life, just recently where it was like, well, I have to go do DoorDash just so I can put some food on the table this week, because things
Yeah.
have been kind of crazy. But no matter how much you get pushed down or the people around you, right, are the people that have never done what you're trying to do, you
Yeah.
know? And those are the voices that say you should quit, you should give up, just go get a job, be like everybody else. And boy,
It's
I
not
would just
fun.
encourage people to don't give up, don't quit.
You remind me of a thing my mom used to tell me all the time when I was a kid. You can tell me you're sorry all you want, but if you didn't learn anything from it and you keep repeating whatever
Yep,
you've done, you didn't really mean you were sorry.
that's
And I,
exactly.
right, Matt? So I take this into the same context to say, no matter what happened that allowed you to trip or fall, whatever, as long as you learn, get
Yep,
up, take that new information and move forward. That is the difference between knowledge and experience. That's wisdom, right? That's
yep,
taking the lumps and taking the slings and arrows you had to deal with and learning from it in order to build a better bread box, in order to build that better mousetrap. So you can move forward because you know something different now. And I think I had a great conversation with somebody earlier that was talking about the difference between hiring somebody with 3 years experience at $100,000 versus somebody with 30 years of experience and is asking for $150,000. At the end of the day, you could save those $50,000 a year,
Yep.
but the pain that you're going to go through
Yep.
learning alongside somebody who doesn't have any experience, doesn't have the knowledge, and therefore is void of all wisdom, how could
Yep.
you possibly justify not spending that $50,000 and hiring the person that's been there and done that? And that's what I
Right.
think is so special about this series is when you and I first talked, I want to talk to people that have been there and done that so we can take people and instead of going through 3 or 5 years of trying to figure this out, shorten that gap down to 1 year, 2 years, and be successful because you really found a way to follow people in the path
Yep.
where they've already trailblazed for you. So I appreciate those two lessons.
There's if I could say one more thing,
Please.
there's a book that I have read multiple times, and it's called Who Moved My Cheese, right?
Yeah.
Love the book. The story behind it is fantastic. And a little personal story. Back in late 90s, early 2000s, we had developed a analytics engine for e-commerce that this was the day when the only analytics you had were how many visitors, how many page views, things like that. And we were able to actually track how much time they spent on each field and how much time a mouse spent over the add to cart button. And we were at a level of depth that, nobody had at that point. And then just as we were getting ready, we were finishing up the user interface for this thing, Google comes out and says, "Look at Google Analytics. We have everything in this."
Mm,
And, I remember sitting in my office at that time going, well, crap, we just invested, 6 months in this thing
yeah.
and spent all this money and all this time and all these resources. And it was like, all right, brush yourself off. What am I going to do
Mhm.
next? Let's try again,
Yeah.
And that's just the kind of thing. It was that whole move my cheese, right? Google came in and moved my cheese, and I had to go, all right, well, crap. Now what do we do? And that's just how you start over. You pivot, you start over.
Well, 100%. And I love the analogy, especially with the book Who Moved My G's, because it's not who came and took your stuff from you. It's not always in the same place at the same time. I got to
Yep.
find a different way to skin this cat. I got to find a different
Yep.
way to get what I need, what I'm looking for. And
Yep,
you're a
for
perfect
sure.
example of that. I mean, it could easily be said, okay, Madfish Solutions, just come to us. This is what we do. But you've branched out to say, all right, we're going to have Madfish AI. We're going to help you we're a boutique consulting firm to help you get your e-commerce up and running with our AI machine. If you want to come to Madfish Solution, we can do all the other content creation. We can do SEO. We can do all that other stuff. If you want to just get a coaching scenario put together because you're an e-commerce store, talk to Matt Reeder specifically.
Yep.
It's interesting that you have three different entities that all serve the same world, but in very different capacities. And when I look
Yep.
at that, that is a exceptional example of who moved my cheese. Because if somebody wants to take away the opportunity to do one-on-one coaching with you, well, I've got these other two business ventures. I'll
Yep.
find my other one.
For
If
sure.
all that stuff falls away, well, at least I have the AI thing. Like there's always something for you to pivot on. What I want people to recognize, there's always an opportunity to do something different that is adjacent to what you do that's not going to be so distracting, but do it at the right time. Because one of the things I don't want to do is tell somebody to jump when you're not ready. But
Yeah.
there's also, I mean, you made a comment too, is hey, sometimes you just got to jump. Sometimes you just got to go do it, but you got to be smart about it. And I like
Yep.
the three different entities under your umbrella because they serve a very specific niche, but you
Yep.
do it in a very different way.
Yep, yep, for sure. That's exactly what we're aiming to do, right? You've got the customer that just needs better business intelligence and better actionable items. I think that e-commerce people are just flooded with a bunch of so what data.
Yeah.
They're given reports and dashboards and numbers and they look at it and they go, all right, so what?
Mhm.
And what Madfish AI does is it takes that data and says, okay, here's what you do, here's the steps, here's how long it's going to take you, here's who you're going to need, and let's build this together kind of thing, right? And that's the big thing with that. So,
Okay,
and
I
you're
want
right.
to. Yeah, no, I that's fantastic. I want to summarize that because the the so what data versus real analytics and hardcore data that says here's what we know and what we're going to do next now that we know it. That
Yep.
is a huge jump. Almost, God, that I mean, think about how marketing people work and how their minds work, right? I have this data, I can make decisions on it. You're telling me with the Madfish AI, specifically in e-commerce, I know all these different data points. Now I'm going to tell you predictively what would work best moving forward because that's what the data says, as
Yeah.
opposed to guessing, right? That's a huge piece.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Awesome. I
For sure.
interrupted you. I'm sorry, Matt. You were
No,
going
no,
to
no,
say,
no, 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 absolutely no. You're right on spot with that, right? And one of the things that we did with the AI platform is we know just from my own family's experience working with AI, friends of mine, other businesses that we've seen that they really don't understand the power and capability that sits at their fingertips
mm,
because they don't know what to ask. They
yeah,
don't know what to say or what to ask. So what we did is in every spot of our application, we have a dynamic dashboard, for instance, that has all kinds of data about all your different data points. And what we did is, let's say you get down to your email open rate that, it says that it's 12%. And people go, okay, well, we have this little icon up in the corner that you click on. And what it does is it takes all the context of that data point for your company and sends it over to the chat window. And it starts that conversation with Finn, who is our AI,
mm,
starts that conversation with Finn so that then you can continue the discussion of, okay, so this is my open rate. What does that really mean? What
mhm,
should I really do with this? What do I do here? You know,
mm.
and that ability from anywhere in the application, whether it's with our conversation starters or the dashboard, Fin integration or the insights that come across, all of them all connect back and say, hey, start a conversation with Fin with this information. And, you know, we've taken away that hurdle of what should I ask? I was
Right.
testing it one time and one of the conversation starter is what's the best day of the week for me? And it went back and looked at the historical data and came back and said, look, Wednesday's your best day, undoubtedly. So it said we can attack this in two ways. One, how do we boost more advertising promotion emails before Wednesday to capitalize on that market? And two, what strategy can we put together to improve weekend performance?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that we can do. So it's really a whole different level than what we've ever had before in the past. And it's super fun. What's the most fun for me is when I'm working on it or I'm coding it or testing it or improving it, and I do some testing and I ask it some bizarre question that I never would think in a million years it's going to give me a good answer. And it comes back with data and explanation and plans that I would have never even thought of.
Wow.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So
This is the 12-year-old's dream
it really
come to
is.
life. That's
It
that's really
really is.
cool. That's
Yeah.
that's something that God, everybody should get the opportunity to experience.
Yep, for
Um,
sure.
we talked about failure and it being an opportunity, as you made comment. We talked about, keep going, don't quit. What is if there was a lesson that is in your mind as far as this is the one thing I know I did and it's a lesson, how would you explain it to somebody just starting out?
Wow, there's so much there that I could think of.
Yeah.
Um, one of the biggest ones that I've learned over time is cash flow is king,
Mm, okay.
you know. Um, be careful of unnecessary subscriptions and
Mhm.
unnecessary services that you think you need when you really don't. And as your money starts coming in, one of the early days of Madfish Solutions, we we're doing a lot of what I call camel cash flow, and it's humps and valleys, humps
Yeah.
and valleys. You get a couple of big projects in, they pay their deposit, you've got this big hump, and then you got a valley. And in the early days, I would spend like we were going to have that hump every month along the way.
Yeah.
And I think the lesson that I learned out of that is make sure that you are putting away and saving for your cash flow needs you should try and get 6 months out,
Yeah.
where you kind of have that, so you have that cushion. And that's probably one of the biggest things. The other thing that I would say is know that partnerships are like marriage and they're just as difficult as a divorce to get out of, right? Know your
Hmm.
partners well. Make sure you have the hard conversations up front. What happens if this goes sideways? What if
Yeah.
you don't perform like the company needs you to? What if I don't perform like the company needs me
Hmm.
to? You know, what if I mismanage finances or overspend expenses or whatever it is? Have those difficult conversations before you sign the papers because um, I started an e-commerce store. I don't know when it was, probably 2006, 2007. And it was a cooking store online.
Okay.
Got three partners involved with it, knew them a little, right? And we were handling all the e-commerce side of things and had a store, had all kinds of inventory. We're doing everything that we could do. And about 6 months into it, a couple of partners, man, they just went crazy. I mean, they were just like, you know, this isn't doing what it needs to be doing. And I'm like, guys, there's a real runway to this thing. I mean, when you're doing a startup of an e-commerce site, there's a real runway that you have. And they went nuts. And then for me to get out was a big hassle and, transferring
Mm.
the IP over. And it was just a nightmare. And, that's just a lesson that when you're going to bring a partner in, have the hard conversations,
Yeah.
make sure you know them well. How are they going to react under pressure? How are they going to react when things go
That's a
great?
good point.
All that stuff.
And the other thing too is, do they match your vision for what the business is supposed to be? Do they have a cultural alignment, and are
Yep.
they gonna live by that? It's
Yep, for
it's
sure.
it's difficult when there's more than one person in charge,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And very rarely has there ever been a monument erected for a committee, right? It
Right.
doesn't work that way. So sometimes you just have to be the one in charge. And when you have your partners, I think it's a great lesson. I appreciate you bringing that forward. But sometimes you have to pick your partners more intent than you do your life partner.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Believe it or not, it has been 30 minutes, my man.
All right,
I,
man.
I have a final question for you. If
Yeah.
I put you in a time machine
Hmm.
and I send you back and your 18-year-old self,
Yeah.
you two sit on a park bench, what's that conversation like?
Um, I think that I would probably reiterate some of the things that I've said already in this
Yeah.
conversation, but I think the thing that I would tell the 18-year-old version of me is I would say there's going to be a time that you build your own e-commerce platform and you're selling it all over and you've become friends with some of the founders of some of the largest hosting companies. And this guy comes up to me in my, I don't know, it was probably, I don't know, early 30s, late 20s. And he says, Matt, whatever you do, you have to make this software as a service. And this was back in the day when there was really only one other e-commerce platform that was a software as a service, and ours was better. And he goes, no matter what you do, you got to do this. And we were selling this thing for like $10,000 a pop, when we were building
Right.
sites, and I couldn't get my head around the, $99 or $199 a month kind of thing. And I didn't do it. And in
Hmm.
hindsight, biggest mistake of my career. If I had done that, I'd be sitting on a beach right now.
Got it.
and so that would probably be the big thing is say build this as software as a service.
That's a really interesting lesson to learn, right? But then again, and if you lived your whole life in hindsight, you'd never see where you have a chance to go, right?
Exactly.
So I appreciate the lesson. I appreciate the commentary for your young self, but there's also a lesson in that. Um, if you're looking through the rearview mirror, you're missing out. So I appreciate it.
Yep,
Any
for
final
sure.
words, my man? Any final words?
No, I really have appreciated the time. I look forward to talking to you some more and seeing if there's any way that I can help with this. And yeah, I would just tell people that, if there are anybody watching this thing that are e-commerce merchants, they
Yeah.
can visit us at madfishsolutions.com or madfish.ai or mattreader.com. And when I built this business, one of the things that was really important to my heart and about the mission of the company is it was about making a difference to people,
Hmm.
right? When you when you sit 6 months in and a company owner runs up to you at a trade show and wraps their arms around you and says, "Man, you changed my life."
Yeah,
You know, there's no amount of money, no amount of success, no amount of anything that beats that, right? And that's just really, really critical to
I
our
love
company
that.
right now. Yeah,
No,
for sure.
that's a good gut punch into reality, right? That's what the reason that you do this, granted you get paid, but the feeling of helping somebody else become more of a success is
Yeah,
pretty powerful. And
for sure.
I would agree. There's nothing quite like I call it the Romeo and Juliet light upon yonder window break moment where they go, "Oh my God, that's it. It's so simple."
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the moments that make sense for us. So
Yeah.
I appreciate it. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man. We will
Yeah,
talk to you.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right.
Next time on the next episode.
All right. Bye-bye.